Good afternoon, everyone. This is Carmen Hernandez, a meteorologist here at the National Weather Service in Peachtree City / Atlanta, Georgia, here for a recorded special weather briefing for the cold and potential winter weather early next week. So now that the rainfall has moved mostly out of our area, we're going to get into the main points and headlines today through Thursday, starting off with Sunday afternoon, where we have a medium chance that isolated flurries will affect North Georgia into the metro. At this time, no accumulations are expected, except potentially in the peaks of the North Georgia mountains in those higher elevations, but again, no accumulations are expected with these isolated flurries. Then we get into Sunday into Monday with much colder conditions coming into the area, which we'll get into that a little more here soon, with wind chill values down in the 0 to 10 degree Fahrenheit range by Monday morning. We're also expecting negative values in the mountains, which we'll get into as well. Then after that, an extended period of cold below normal temperatures expected through the week. And then lastly, what everyone's kind of asking us about is this winter weather potential that exists in North and Central Georgia between Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll get further into that, but again, uncertainty remains on exact timing, locations, and amounts, but confidence is increasing in impacts expected from Metro Atlanta to areas southward. And there is a high likelihood of impacts if the winter precipitation does fall. So starting off with that cold weather we were talking about, here's the Sunday's weather map. You see that high pressure pushing in behind that front that came through with very cold Arctic air beginning to affect our area there. And that highlighted region I have there in the pink is actually where we have medium confidence in isolated flurries Sunday night. Again, no accumulation is expected with these isolated flurries. Then we get into Monday's weather map, and that high pressure has pretty much fully come into the area at this point with very cold and Arctic air expected. We're going to get further into how cold that air is and any impacts that we're expecting with that in these next couple of slides. So, looking at this cold weather, we're looking at dangerously cold conditions expected Sunday night through Thursday. We're going to look at Sunday night into Monday morning first. You see these temperatures are below 30 degrees across all of Georgia and then below 20 degrees over much of areas north of Macon, really. And with that, with our wind chills or feels like temperature, we're going to see ranges of 0 to 10 degrees over much of northern Georgia. And as you see in that area near Blairsville and the northeast Georgia mountains, we are seeing negative wind chills in that area. So that's becoming a little bit higher confidence in this happening and a little bit more of a higher confidence in the dangerously cold conditions. So all of that has led us to issue an extreme cold watch as of about an hour ago, which this is meaning that we have high confidence in wind chill values at or below 0 over this extreme cold watch area. Do you remember these extreme cold watches and cold watches are new for this season, so I encourage you to look at that criteria on our webpage. Again, other than those areas, most counties in North and Central Georgia not included in this current watch will have a cold weather advisory issued as we get closer to time with that Sunday night again into Monday morning. And we just want to remind you to protect the 4 Ps, which is pets, pipes, vulnerable population, and plants. These temperatures are getting to the point where pipes will begin to burst, which we'll get into that a little further with our hours below freezing coming up in the next couple of slides. So then we get into Monday. As you can see on our high temperature on Monday, many areas north of Macon are not going to reach above 32 degrees, which is freezing. So that's wherever we start to get into those hours below freezing, which leads to some pipe bursts in some areas. So definitely want to keep watch of that. Go ahead and start preparing for that and for those dangerous cold conditions. Even in central Georgia, we're looking at below 40 degrees, which is pretty cold for this time of year. Then we look into our low temperature Monday night, and we're seeing again areas below 32 for almost all of Georgia, with below 20 Macon northward. And then again, looking Tuesday, this is when we start to get into the winter weather range, which we'll start to talk about, but you see temperatures here currently, we're seeing 35 and below north of the metro, and then 40 and below central Georgia and northward for Tuesday. Which again, seeing that Blairsville area, that's adding to our ticking time of amount of hours below freezing, which we'll get into in a couple of slides here. But I do want to preface and say that our max temps Tuesday could be colder than this if we have that wintry precip falling, which we'll get into that in a couple of slides. Then we look into our low temperatures Tuesday night, with most areas in central Georgia and northward below 20 degrees yet again adding to that clock of hours below freezing we're seeing. Taking a look at Wednesday into Wednesday night, we're still again looking at most areas below 40. This may start to be the areas where we get above freezing in some of those areas, but again, if wintry precip is falling or fell on Tuesday in those areas where there could be snow accumulation, we're going to see those max temps being colder on these days. So this will have some variation as we get into the next couple of days. And again, Wednesday night, pretty much everywhere below 20 degrees yet again. That's kind of the theme we're seeing for most nights with this winter precip overall. So I talked a lot about that clock of hours at temps at or below 32 degrees and what that means. So this is our updated hours below freezing graphic, and it has increased in the number of hours we're seeing. With our max at greater than 90, you see Blairsville there at 91 hours below freezing. So we're pretty much saying that this is going to be a long duration cold event. So looking at some past similar experiences in this area, we start to see problems beginning at around 48 hours. As you can see here, almost all of Georgia shows greater than 48 hours. So what that means, what we see at 48 hours is pipes freezing and bursting. So we're recommending everyone begin to take precautions this weekend to go ahead and prepare to try and prevent those pipes freezing and bursting as this dangerously cold weather reaches the area. So now we get into what everyone's been asking us about, which are the snow probs. As you can see, if you saw our briefing yesterday, these snow probs have begun to increase, which you see here on the left. We are showing the probability of greater than 1 inches of snow Tuesday through Thursday. And as you can see, that has definitely increased, especially along central Georgia, with Columbus at 61%, even Atlanta at 48%. Then you can see that North Georgia area where we're not necessarily expecting as much at those lower probs. But again, especially in that central Georgia up to the ATL metro area, we're really keeping an eye on. And then we look at our greater than 2 inches of snow. So this is important because 2 inches is where we reach our winter storm criteria, where winter storm watches and warnings could be issued. And right now we are looking at Columbus showing a 47% chance of greater than 2 inches, and then Macon 45, Atlanta 41. So this has overall increased since yesterday, and that basically means that the models have come into a better alignment of what they think is going to be happening. We're beginning to get into the range of some HighRes models as those come in, and these probabilities will continue to come into better alignment and potentially go up as the days go on. We'll just have to see how they react in the next day or so with these. But these are our current probabilities, again with the 2 inches equaling our winter storm criteria. So what does all this snowfall mean for you, potential snowfall mean for you, this wintry precipitation potential? So this is what we call WSSI, which is the Winter Severity Storm Index done by WPC, the Weather Projection Center here. And we're basically saying with this, confidence is increasing that winter precipitation will occur, which will likely lead to impacts. This is showing the likelihood of minor impacts, which is showing 60 to 70% in that area of the ATL metro and southwards. So what do we see at minor impacts? We're expecting a few inconveniences to daily life with winter driving conditions, and definitely use caution while driving. So those cold temperatures that we're seeing, those can equal impacts on roads shortly after onset. If the road's already cold, then that snowfall is going to accumulate really quickly there and cause traffic disruptions, even with the smaller amounts, kind of like what we saw how quickly it started to accumulate about a week ago. And then those cold temps for days, those impacts of any accumulation are going to linger for several days after it falls. So if we do get that snowfall, it will likely stick around for a few days and cause some travel impacts. So we just want to highlight that and make you aware for any preparedness that you need to do. So then we look at the potential for wintry precipitation to cause moderate and major impacts. Looking at our moderate impacts, we're at about 40 to 60%, mostly in that 40 to 50% range, but we do have a couple of splotches there with the orange at the 50 to 60% range, so wanted to include that. And again, our confidence is increasing that winter precipitation will fall, which will likely lead to impacts. This confidence is going to go up over the next couple of days, depending on what the models are showing us. And then for our major impacts here, you can see that it's still showing about what it showed yesterday, which is a 20 to 30% chance of major impacts, which major impacts equates to considerable disruptions to daily life, avoiding travel if possible, dangerous or impossible driving conditions, and widespread closures possible depending on how the infrastructure is. So we just wanted to highlight those two here, and just so you know the risk in the moderate and major impacts based off of what we are currently seeing and what WPC, the Weather Prediction Center, is seeing with this wintry precip. So now that we've gone through the impacts, let's talk about the high end and the low end snow potential Tuesday through Thursday, or what we call our boom or bust. So looking at our reasonable worst case scenario, this means there's a 10% of seeing this much or more. So this is kind of our higher end amounts that we're possible to see. So as you can see, we see areas of 7 to 9, 10, 11 inches there. That has increased since yesterday, but that is also with some of the HighRes starting to come in, that will start to become refined over the next day or two. So keep that in mind with this. And then for our best case scenario, which we have a 10% chance of seeing nothing. So you might wonder, like, why is that? So basically, there still is a small chance that the low that's expected to track eastward will not form. Now, that percentage chance has definitely decreased since yesterday, but again, there still is showing a 10% chance of the low not forming, which would again mean no snowfall totals over this area. So right now, this has decreased. I just want to mention that again. Yesterday we showed 30% chance of nothing, but now it's at 10% chance of seeing nothing. So that's continuing to go down with that. So again, this event has kind of a higher ceiling due to the dynamics in play for snow in the first place, but there again means there's a possibility of seeing nothing at all, although that chance is decreasing overall. So again, stay tuned for us for our next briefing tomorrow to see how these change, but this is what we currently have for that Tuesday to Thursday time frame. So getting a little further into that and going into the model probabilities, we start off here on the left with the GFS ensemble, which is 30 members. It's been driest up to this point, but like yesterday, it is trending snowier. We're at about 30 to 40% chance of seeing at least an inch with this. It has kind of pushed a little, kind of congealed a little bit better over central Georgia with those chances, but we could still see that northern fringe potential. Then we look at the Euro, which has 50 members and has been somewhere in between the GFS ensemble and the Canadian ensemble. So with this, it's showing, actually this has increased since yesterday, a 70 to 80% chance of seeing at least an inch of snow in that highest area. And then even over the ATL Metro, we're seeing a 50 to 60% chance, up to 65% chance of seeing at least 1 inch of snow. Then we get into the Canadian ensemble, which is 20 members. This has consistently been the snowiest or highest totals up to this point here, and it has jumped up quite a bit since yesterday, showing portions south of the ATL Metro there around LaGrange and along 85 on the western side, showing a potential between 80 to 90%, maybe up to 95% in some of those areas, and the rest of the areas showing 80 to 90%. So we're keeping an eye on that. We'll see how the HighRes models start to come in over the next couple of days and see what changes come in with that. So this is an early estimate of our winter precip timing. So models are starting to converge and trend towards Tuesday afternoon, but there is still some uncertainty on that timing. So we're getting into here with the Euro on the left with Model 1. We're showing at a 4 p.m. Tuesday image snapshot. And then on the right, Model 2 is the GFS showing a 7 p.m. Tuesday image snapshot. So you can see those are similar, but there's about a 3 hours difference. So our earliest reasonable onset time that we've been looking at has kind of pushed a little further back to Tuesday late morning, although we're really looking at that Tuesday afternoon time framing. Again, as the HighRes models come in, we'll start to see a better picture of this timing and impacts. So getting into our very first HighRes model that has come in, again, want to disclaimer, this is the first of the HighRes models to come in and things are likely to change. But showing here at that 4 p.m. Tuesday image snapshot, this is kind of showing some snowfall over the ATL Metro in North Georgia, portions of Central, and then pushing at 7 p.m. Tuesday, quite a bit of snowfall over North Georgia with maybe some mixed precip over Central Georgia. Again, this is only one model, so more models will begin to populate as we get closer to the event, and this will continue to come together better and give us a better picture of what precip types we're expecting, as well as amounts and timing for this. But just showing this, it is kind of agreeing a little bit with the two global models before with that Tuesday afternoon timing. So really starting to hone in on that, but again, we will update in the next day or two as we get more information. So that is kind of how we're going to conclude our briefing, but I just want to go over the main points and headlines one more time. From Saturday today through Thursday, we are seeing a medium chance that isolated flurries will affect North Georgia into the metro Sunday afternoon, but again, no accumulations are expected except in the peaks of the North Georgia mountains where light accumulations are possible. Then we get into Sunday into Monday with those much colder conditions expected, with wind chill values down in the 0 to 10 degree Fahrenheit range by Monday morning, with negative wind chill values in the mountains. An extended period of cold below normal temperatures expected through the week. Again, we saw those hours below freezing, with most hours well above 48 hours below freezing, which leads to those pipes bursting. So we're pushing that preparedness with that. And then again, winter weather potential does exist anywhere in North and Central Georgia, Tuesday to Wednesday, but there does still remain some uncertainty on exact timing, location, and amounts, but confidence is increasing in impacts expected from Metro Atlanta to areas southward as those more models come in. And again, if there is winter precipitation that falls, there is a high likelihood of impact, especially with travel. That will conclude our briefing for today. Thank you for tuning in and listening to this recording. We will have another briefing tomorrow that is done. And then below is our contact information and reporting at our phone number, email, NWS chat. We'll be continuously updating in Slack, and then our reporting hotline. And then also want to highlight our NWS Atlanta winter page below, where we have quite a few of these probabilities and amounts highlighted there. So if you get the chance, take a look, and please join us for our briefing tomorrow.